The Galactic Empire had never encountered a species like humanity before. On the fringes of their vast empire, a scout ship detected an unfamiliar signal, weak, insignificant, and clearly non-threatening. The signal came from a small fleet of ships originating from a previously uncharted system, so. The Empire's initial reaction? Indifference. The system was irrelevant, its inhabitants unknown and unworthy of concern. Protocol, however, demanded a response. A formal transmission was sent, laden with the typical arrogance the Empire had cultivated over centuries. Unknown vessels, you are in restricted Imperial space. Surrender immediately, or face total destruction. It was a message that had cowed countless species across the galaxy, leaving them trembling before the might of the Empire. The response from the human fleet, however, was unexpected. Static crackled over the communication channels before the voice of a human captain came through, light-hearted and casual. Surrender? To you guys? That's adorable. How about you come over here and try? There was a pause on the Imperial command deck. The officers glanced at one another, unsure if they had misheard. The translation systems must have glitched. Surely no intelligent species would respond to the Empire's demands with sarcasm. Another transmission followed from a different human vessel. Hey, maybe they think we're tourists. Should we ask for a tour? I hear their Empire's real big. Lots of sights. The Imperial commander, a veteran of countless campaigns, narrowed his eyes. Prepare the strike force, he ordered, his voice tight with irritation. Let's teach these primitives some respect. The Empire's ships moved with the precision expected of a force that had conquered half the known galaxy. Sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons, they surged forward toward the human fleet, ready to obliterate them in a single, decisive strike. Victory would be swift. It always was. But something strange happened. The human ships didn't engage in battle as the Empire expected. Instead, they scattered. Not in retreat. No, that would have made sense. But in a chaotic, erratic series of maneuvers that left the Imperial targeting systems struggling to lock on. Human ships zipped between asteroids, spun in seemingly random directions, and performed stunts that made absolutely no tactical sense. What are they doing? One of the Imperial officers asked, baffled. Playing, the commander grumbled, watching the human ships on the tactical display. They think this is a game. Indeed, it seemed as though the humans were toying with the Empire's forces. Whenever an Imperial cruiser fired, the humans dodged at the last possible moment, slipping past with casual ease. On open channels, human voices could be heard laughing, joking, mocking. Is that all you've got? One voice taunted. I thought this Empire of yours was supposed to be dangerous. They can't even hit us. Another chuckled. Maybe we should send them a manual on how to aim. The Empire's strike force, accustomed to crushing opposition with brute force and overwhelming numbers, found themselves chasing shadows. Their shots went wide. Their formations, so rigid and disciplined, were useless against the unpredictability of the human pilots. A sudden explosion rocked one of the Imperial cruisers, not from enemy fire, but from a collision with a piece of floating debris. The humans had led them into an asteroid field, weaving between the massive rocks with ease while the Empire's lumbering warships struggled to navigate. It was a humiliation the Empire had never faced before. They're making a mockery of us, the Imperial commander growled, gripping the edge of his console. How are they doing this? No one had an answer. From the human side, the mockery continued. Man, they're really bad at this. Should we tell them it's okay to give up? Nah, another voice replied with a laugh. Let them keep trying. Maybe they'll get lucky. The Imperial commander's face flushed with anger. He had never encountered an enemy that didn't fear the Empire. Every species they'd subjugated had knelt in terror, begging for mercy. These humans, though, they weren't just defiant. They were amused. They think this is a joke, the commander said, his voice low and dangerous. One of the human ships, smaller and faster than the rest, darted close to the Imperial flagship, just out of range of its cannons. Over the comms, the human pilot's voice rang out, cheerful as ever. "Hey, nice ship you got there. Shame it's so slow. Might wanna upgrade that tech, Grandpa." "Enough!" the commander shouted, slamming his fist down. "All ships, full assault! I want those pests destroyed!" The Imperial fleet surged forward, weapons blazing, but it was no use. The human ships danced around them, dodging every shot, their pilots laughing and joking as if they were at some kind of interstellar amusement park. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of embarrassment, the Imperial commander ordered a retreat, his pride bruised and his fleet battered, not by force, but by sheer humiliation. The humans had proven impossible to pin down, their tactics nonsensical yet devastatingly effective. As the Empire's ships limped away, another human transmission came through. "Hey, thanks for the warm-up. Next time, maybe bring your A-game. This was too easy." The Empire, for the first time in its long, storied history, had been laughed off the battlefield. The retreating Imperial fleet was not accustomed to failure, much less at the hands of such an insignificant force. Back at their command posts, the Imperial High Council was not pleased. A minor skirmish should never have resulted in a retreat, let alone at the hands of a species that had barely registered on their star maps. The situation was embarrassing, and worse yet, word was already spreading. Their power was being questioned for the first time in millennia. The Council demanded immediate action. Reinforcements were sent, a far larger fleet than necessary, to ensure that this human problem was swiftly erased. The Empire could not afford any further mockery. As the massive fleet prepared to engage, there was an air of confidence, no arrogance, among the Imperial commanders. This time, there would be no playing around. The humans would be crushed like the insects they were. The humans, on the other hand, had heard of the Empire's reinforcements. Their response? More humor. "They're sending more ships? Wow, guess we really ruffled their feathers. Think they're trying to overcompensate for something?" Human chatter on the open frequencies made it clear that they weren't intimidated. In fact, they seemed to relish the idea of a larger challenge. Their light-hearted banter continued as they discussed the approaching Imperial fleet, like children excited for a new game. One of the human captains laughed, his voice coming through clearly over the comms. "Okay, boys and girls, time to show them what we really got. Let's make 'em work for it." The Imperial fleet arrived in formation, battle-hardened ships, with rows of cannons and shimmering shields. This time, there would be no mistakes, no chance for the humans to mock them. The Empire was prepared for war. The first barrage of fire lit up the stars as the Imperial fleet unleashed their full arsenal. Missiles, laser cannons, energy beams, all designed to annihilate the enemy. The humans, instead of evading as they had before, seemed almost nonchalant. They didn't scatter. They didn't flee. They simply let the Imperial fire rain down upon them. From the Imperial command deck, there was a moment of confusion. "Why aren't they moving?" one officer asked, his brow furrowed. "Do they think they can survive this?" It was a question that would soon be answered. The human ships flickered, then disappeared from sight. What? Where did they go? The Empire had never seen anything like it. The humans, using a crude yet effective cloaking technology, vanished completely from the battlefield. The Imperial sensors, advanced and cutting-edge, couldn't detect them. They were effectively blind. Panic began to ripple through the Imperial ranks. The human fleet reappeared moments later, but in entirely new positions, surrounding the Imperial fleet. A calculated move, exploiting the Empire's rigid formations, and catching them completely off guard. "Didn't see that coming, did you?" One human voice taunted over the open channels. "Surprise! We're still here!" The humans' ability to cloak and reposition had rendered the Empire's overwhelming firepower useless. Once again, the Imperial fleet was being toyed with. But this time, it wasn't just playful dodging and banter. The humans were striking back. They weren't using massive weapons of destruction like the Empire's, but rather a series of well-placed precision strikes, targeting weak points in the Imperial ship's defenses. Engines were disabled. Weapons systems fried. Communication lines jammed. Looks like someone forgot to update their security protocols. Another human voice teased as the Imperial command deck was filled with alarms and error messages. The Empire was facing a force that defied all their expectations. Humanity, though technologically inferior on paper, was proving to be a master of asymmetric warfare. Their tactics were unconventional, unpredictable, and above all, devastatingly effective. The Empire's reliance on brute force and superior numbers was being exploited with almost surgical precision. How are they doing this? One Imperial officer demanded, his voice tinged with disbelief. The answer was simple: adaptability. Where the Empire operated like a machine, efficient, powerful, but rigid, humans were fluid. They didn't follow predictable patterns or traditional tactics. They improvised, and their creativity in the face of overwhelming odds was proving to be a nightmare for the Empire's disciplined, by-the-book commanders. The humans continued to mock the Empire's inability to counter their moves. At one point, a human voice rang out through the Imperial fleet's communication system, playing what appeared to be ancient Earth music, a jaunty, upbeat tune that contrasted sharply with the chaos unfolding in the Imperial ranks. It was clear, the humans were enjoying this. They weren't just fighting to survive, they were fighting for fun. But underneath the humor, there was a deeper strategy at play. The humans were wearing the Empire down, exploiting every weakness, testing their limits. They weren't rushing into battle. They were studying the Empire's every move, learning their strategies, adapting in real time. It was a game to the humans, but one they were winning decisively. And the Empire, for all its power, was floundering. As the Imperial fleet limped back to regroup, the humans didn't chase them down. Instead, another message came through, light-hearted as ever. Thanks for the dance. Next time, maybe try something new. It was an insult, delivered with a grin, and the Empire felt it keenly. They had been outmaneuvered, outthought, and worst of all, outclassed by a species they had considered insignificant. The defeat stung, not just because they had lost the battle, but because the humans had made them feel ridiculous in the process. Back on the command deck, the Imperial commander's hands were clenched into fists. His pride had taken a blow it would not soon recover from. These humans, these insignificant, laughing creatures, had made fools of the Empire. But this was far from over. The Empire's wrath would be swift, and it would be total. The Imperial fleet returned to their command, bruised but not broken. The defeat was unprecedented, and the Empire could not afford another public humiliation. As news of the second encounter spread, the Galactic Empire's upper echelon moved into crisis mode. How had they, with all their technological superiority, been outsmarted by a backwater species? This wasn't a battle anymore. It was an existential threat to the Empire's reputation. The Empire's solution was simple: escalation. They dispatched one of their most feared warlords, Lord Corthan, along with an armada large enough to overwhelm entire star systems. The message was clear: this time, no more games. This time, humanity would be crushed without mercy. But as the Imperial armada arrived on the outskirts of the human system, they encountered something peculiar. The human fleet was still there, waiting, as if anticipating their arrival. Yet, instead of preparing for a desperate last stand, the humans seemed casual. Well, looks like the Empire brought in the big guns," one human captain remarked over an open channel, his tone dripping with amusement. "About time. We were starting to get bored." The humans didn't appear to be panicking or scrambling to defend themselves. They were laughing. Laughing in the face of what was supposed to be an overwhelming force. For a species facing annihilation, they seemed remarkably unfazed. The Imperial commanders exchanged confused glances. This was not the reaction they had expected. Where was the desperation? The fear? The panic? Something was wrong, but they couldn't place it. Still, orders were orders. They would proceed with the plan. Lord Corthan, seated on the bridge of his flagship, issued a single command: annihilate them. The Imperial fleet began their assault, launching waves of missiles and energy beams, enough firepower to obliterate an entire planet. The sky lit up with flashes of destruction as the Empire unleashed its might. But once again, the human ships moved with precision and grace, weaving between the barrages like dancers in a cosmic ballet. They weren't merely avoiding destruction, they were making a mockery of the Empire's attempts. "That all you got?" another human voice taunted. The Imperial fleet's barrage intensified, but it didn't matter. The humans had mastered the art of misdirection, and every attack seemed to miss its mark. It was as if they knew what the Empire was going to do before they even did it. Frustration boiled over in the Imperial ranks. They were throwing everything they had at these insolent humans, and yet nothing was working. Then came the second shock. In the midst of the chaos, the human fleet began to strike back, not with overwhelming force, but with pinpoint precision. Instead of trying to overpower the Imperial Armada, the humans targeted key systems, engines, communication arrays, shield generators. One by one, Imperial ships found themselves disabled, stranded in space, unable to continue the fight. "We've been hacked!" one Imperial officer shouted in disbelief. The humans had infiltrated the Empire's systems, planting viruses that disabled entire ships in seconds. It was a level of technological warfare the Empire had never seen. They had underestimated the humans, believing their technology to be crude and unsophisticated. But what they hadn't realized was that humans didn't need to match the Empire's firepower, they simply needed to outthink them. For every ship the Empire sent into battle, the humans had a counter. They jammed communications, leaving entire squadrons isolated and unable to coordinate. They used guerrilla tactics, striking from unexpected angles before disappearing into the void. It was psychological warfare as much as it was physical, and the Empire was crumbling under the pressure. From his flagship, Lord Corthan watched in mounting disbelief as his forces were systematically dismantled. This wasn't a battle, it was an unraveling. The humans were in control, and they were playing the Empire like a well-practiced symphony. How is this possible?" Corthan muttered, his voice low and filled with rage. The answer came over the open channel, from one of the human captains. "You guys really don't get it, do you? It's not about who's got the biggest fleet or the most firepower. It's about who's having the most fun." That was the core of it. The humans weren't just fighting to survive. They were enjoying themselves, treating the whole thing like a grand game. They had no fear of the Empire, no respect for their supposed superiority. And in that lack of fear, they had found their strength. The Imperial fleet was being beaten by a species that refused to take them seriously. The humans began broadcasting footage of the battle across the galaxy, showing their ships effortlessly dodging Imperial fire and disabling ships with ease. To add insult to injury, they paired the footage with Earth music, upbeat, carefree tunes that underscored the absurdity of the situation. Galactic audiences, once in awe of the Empire's might, now watched in disbelief as humanity turned their greatest foe into a laughingstock. The Empire, once feared and revered, was now being ridiculed on a galactic scale. Memes spread across the networks, images of Imperial ships with the caption, "Can't hit what you can't see." The damage to the Empire's reputation was irreversible. They had been humiliated, not just in battle but in the eyes of the entire galaxy. No longer were they the unstoppable force they once claimed to be. And the humans? They had become legends, the scrappy underdogs who had taken on the might of the Galactic Empire and laughed in their faces. Back on the command deck of his flagship, Lord Corthan seethed with fury. He could feel the weight of his failure pressing down on him. The humans had made a mockery of everything he stood for, everything the Empire had built. And now, he was faced with a decision: continue to throw ships at an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat, or retreat and admit defeat. The humans, sensing his hesitation, sent one final message. "Hey Corthan, maybe it's time you guys learn how to laugh a little. It's just space, after all." The message was followed by laughter, pure, unbridled laughter that echoed through the Imperial fleet's communication channels. It was the final insult, the final twist of the knife. Lord Corthan's hands trembled as he issued the order. Retreat. The Galactic Empire had never retreated before. It was an unspoken rule, a principle that had been ingrained in every member of the fleet. The Empire does not back down. Yet, here they were, pulling back in disgrace, their grand armada scattered, their systems crippled by human ingenuity. Lord Corthan's command to retreat echoed across the fleet, but it was a bitter pill to swallow. Pride had sustained the Empire for millennia, but in the face of humanity, it had been shattered. As the Imperial ships withdrew, the humans didn't pursue. They didn't need to. They had already won, and the galaxy knew it. In fact, the humans broadcasted their victory far and wide, but not with boasts of superiority. No, they simply aired more footage of the battle, interspersed with commentary that was equal parts mocking and light-hearted. It wasn't about rubbing salt in the wound, it was about showing the galaxy how little fear they had for the so-called mighty Empire. It wasn't long before the entire galactic network was buzzing. Conversations spread like wildfire, from the furthest reaches of the galaxy to the Imperial capital itself. Species who had once cowered in fear of the Empire's wrath were now laughing at their misfortune. The memes, the commentary, the sheer audacity of it all, it broke the aura of invincibility the Empire had cultivated for centuries. And amidst all this chaos, the humans remained unbothered, almost as if none of it was a big deal. They didn't treat this victory like a monumental achievement, because for them, it hadn't been a battle of survival. It had been a test of creativity, wit, and most of all, fun. The galaxy had fought wars for power, for dominance, for survival. But the humans had fought simply because they could, and won by doing what no one else had ever thought to do. They didn't take it seriously. The Empire, however, had no choice but to take it seriously. In the halls of power, Lord Corthan faced the fury of the Emperor himself. He had lost not just the battle, but the fear and respect of the galaxy. The Emperor's voice, cold and controlled, lashed out at Corthan as he stood before the Imperial Council, the weight of his failure heavy on his shoulders. You had one task, to crush a primitive species and restore order. And now look at us. We are the joke of the galaxy. What do you have to say for yourself? Corthan's jaw clenched, his mind racing for an answer. But there was nothing he could say that would undo the damage. The humans had exploited their arrogance, used tactics that made no sense to their structured, rigid way of thinking. The humans had played them, and they had lost. They don't fight like any species we've encountered before, Corthan finally admitted. Their tactics are unpredictable. And their attitude, it's as if they don't care about the consequences. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Then you should have broken them. If they don't care, you should have made them care. But that was the problem. The Empire didn't understand humanity's resilience. They had spent so long being feared, so long relying on intimidation and sheer force, that they had forgotten how to adapt. And humanity, with their laughter, their jokes, and their playful disregard for galactic norms, had exposed that weakness. As Corthan left the Imperial Council chambers, his reputation in tatters, he couldn't shake the final message the humans had sent after the battle. It had been simple, almost too simple, but it had struck a chord deep within him. You take yourselves way too seriously. Lighten up. It wasn't a taunt, not really. It was more of an observation, a truth the Empire had never been able to see. They were too rigid, too focused on power and dominance. The humans, on the other hand, had thrived because they didn't take the universe at face value. They laughed in the face of danger because they understood something the Empire never had: fear only has power if you let it. And the humans didn't fear the Empire. They didn't fear anything. Back in the human fleet, the celebration was quiet but genuine. There was no grand parade, no speeches of triumph. Just a quiet satisfaction among the captains and their crews. For them, this had been more than just a victory. It had been a statement. Humanity was here, and they weren't going to conform to the galaxy's expectations. They were going to carve their own path, and they were going to enjoy every second of it. Think they'll come back? One of the crew members asked, glancing out at the vast expanse of space where the Imperial fleet had once been. If they do, a captain replied with a smirk, we'll be ready. Maybe next time we'll show them how to play tag. Laughter rippled through the crew. The idea of the Empire coming back didn't instill dread or fear. It was just another challenge to overcome, another game to win. And that was what made humanity different. They didn't see the galaxy as a hostile place filled with enemies to conquer or dangers to avoid. They saw it as an adventure, one that was as much about the journey as it was the destination. And that was the true victory. It wasn't just that they had beaten the Empire in battle. It was that they had shown the galaxy a new way to live. A way that wasn't ruled by fear or power, but by curiosity, creativity, and above all, a sense of humor. As the human fleet prepared to move on, leaving behind the wreckage of the Imperial Armada, one final message was sent out, broadcast across the stars for all to hear. To the Galactic Empire, thanks for the workout. We'll be here if you ever want a rematch. But next time, try to have some fun. The message spread like wildfire, igniting conversations, debates, and of course, more laughter across the galaxy. The humans had done what no one else had ever dared to do. They had made the Empire look ridiculous. And in doing so, they had cemented their place in galactic history. But for the humans, it was just another day in space. They didn't need to be the most powerful, the most feared, or even the most respected. They were content being the most unpredictable, the most creative, and above all, the ones who never forgot how to laugh. And as they ventured deeper into the galaxy, they knew one thing for certain: no matter what came next, they would face it with the same attitude they always had. With a smile, a joke, and the knowledge that they could outthink, outmaneuver, and most importantly, outlaugh anyone who tried to stand in their way.